Good morning, Professor Sudhir Jain, and thanks a lot, sir, for giving your precious time to me today.
Good morning, Dr. Vijayan. What a pleasure to meet you and to learn a little bit about your very interesting journey. I'm delighted to meet somebody like you.
Okay. Professor Jain, I'm really honored, sir, to interact with you today. And I'll be interacting with you in your three capacities. I know you are academic administrator because after 35 long years of your service in IIT Kanpur, sir, you are the founding director of IIT Gandhinagar, where you are director for the third time, which is one of the rare thing which I've seen. At least I've seen that. So I'll be interacting with you in that capacity, sir. Second, I'll be interacting with you in the capacity of you being visionary, thinker, and researcher. So I'll be having some interaction points related to that. And third, Professor Jain, you are a researcher, academician par excellence. You're a pioneer in the field of earthquake engineering. So I will be having some interaction points in that third capacity. So my entire interaction will be, sir, divided into these three parts. And I'm very sure, sir, largely my followers here are engineering students who are either in graduation or masters or doctorate, or they are faculty somewhere or researcher somewhere. So they will be getting benefited through this entire interaction. So if you give me permission, can we initiate now, sir? And we can, I can go with my first interaction point. Yeah. So my first point of interaction normally is related to the personality. So I have gone through your profile, sir, and you are graduate of Roorkee University, and then after that you have gone to California. You've done your masters and PhD from California Institute of Technology. We want you to tell us something about your journey, and it is rare that someone who spent so many years in premium institute like California Institute of Technology will come back to India and serve India. So we would like you to tell us about your journey, sir.
So, Dr. Vijayan, I am a product of India's basic educational system. I started my education from Uttarakhand, from a place called Rudraprayag.
Okay.
That is where I started my schooling. And then I went to Uttarkashi. That is where I did my class 3. My father was in UP government service, and he used to be transferred from place to place. So I went to very ordinary schools all my life.
Right,
I did maybe number of schools, 6, 7, 8 schools by the time I finished my 12th class because
Right.
of the transfers. I was a hardcore Hindi medium, municipal school, government school kind of a person. And after my 12th, I had to learn English terms of physics, math, and chemistry to appear in JEE exam, because at that time, JEE had only English paper and you had to only write in English. There was no Hindi translation given. So between my 12th class and JEE exam, there was 10 days gap, and that 10 days I utilized to mug up what does focus mean, what does lens mean, what does wavelength mean in Hindi, and vice versa.
Right, sir.
Because all my education was in Hindi medium. So I appeared in IIT exam, I appeared in Roorkee exam, and I was very, very surprised that I had a very good rank in IIT JEE. I had 2-digit rank, 69 rank all India.
Okay, great.
And in Roorkee, I had a 2nd rank.
Okay.
At the time, Roorkee was 4 years and IIT was 5 years.
Okay.
And for various reasons, I ended up deciding to go to Roorkee.
Okay.
And I went there with a very clear mind that I will be a teacher of structural engineering.
Okay.
So at the age of 16, when I went to Roorkee, I knew that I wanted to do professorship in structural engineering. That is what was clear at 16 years age.
Okay.
So during the 4 years, that was very clear. I had to do higher studies and I had to become teacher at Roorkee. At that time, Roorkee was my universe. And I was very, very, very deeply affected by Roorkee. My father had gone to Roorkee. My uncles had gone to Roorkee. So I was very deeply committed to come back to teach at Roorkee. And therefore, government job, corporate job, company job, all those were never an option for me. It was in a matter of accident that I ended up getting a scholarship to go to California Institute of Technology.
Okay.
I had not given my GRE exam. I had not given my TOEFL exam because in Roorkee there was not enough culture at the time to apply for foreign universities. We didn't know how to apply, how to do these things. So it was a matter of accident that I got opportunity to go there. And during my 4 years of study, there was never a doubt in my mind that I'm here to only study and to go back to India. And therefore, sitting in United States, finishing my PhD, I applied to many places in India, including Roorkee. But I was also a very conservative structural engineer who works with safety margin. If this doesn't work, the building should not collapse, that kind of thinking. So I also applied to IITs and to other institutions.
Right.
And I came back from United States thinking I'm going to join Roorkee.
Okay.
And in fact, I went to Roorkee with the intention to join, but things happened, and then I ended up joining at Kanpur IIT.
Right.
That is how it happened. And Kanpur, I stayed for 25 years before I moved to Ahmedabad as a director. Then Kanpur gave me leave, deputation as it is called, to be in this position. So for 10 years, I was here director while I was also holding my job at Kanpur. So that is how 25 years plus 10 years, 35 years. That is how it happened.
Right, sir.
And then after 10 years, when my term got over, I went back to join Kanpur and joined Kanpur. But then I was given another term, third term. And then I felt that I should take formal retirement from Kanpur. It is no point in holding that position there.
Right.
So now that is how my journey has been.
Okay. Professor Sudhir, we would like to ask you, you have been the founding director of IIT Gandhinagar. Sir, what I understand is every good researcher or academician cannot be good academic administrator also. You have proved that you are par excellence as far as administrator is concerned, especially for a new IIT. And IIT Gandhinagar, to what we see today, one of the best performing IITs among entire IIT system, it is largely contribution from your side. I want to ask you, sir, what do you think academic administrators should have, what kind of traits to run such institutes, because India requires such administrators?
So, Dr. Vijay, this is a very interesting question. I think let's go to fundamentals. What do I teach my students? I teach my students, I tell them all the time that life is a continuous learning process and learning should not stop.
Right, sir.
I tell my students that all your life you have to learn new skills. I tell them that what you will learn in your first job or what you will need for your first job is not what you will need in your last job. We tell them all of that.
Right.
To my mind, if your teacher have done a good job on you, you should be able to learn and relearn and relearn and relearn. I think I have been very fortunate to have good teachers. They taught me to learn and relearn, right? So I think as a young faculty at Kanpur IIT, my role was different. I was learning to teach better. I was learning to guide a student better. I was learning to publish a paper better, right? But as a academic leader, I'm learning how to recruit faculty better, how to build the morale of the students better. These are different skill sets. But I think I continue to learn. And I feel that as long as you give your best to whatever needs to be done, you can learn.
Right.
I think there is a resistance to learn. That is the problem.
Yes.
Somebody says, I have been trained to only do structural engineering.
Right.
I will not learn how the structure will sit on the soil. So I will not learn the soil mechanics, for example. Right.
Right, sir.
That resistance. Similarly, I have been trained to be a professor. I will not learn to be a director.
Yes.
Right. As long as you are willing to spend time and go to Jnani people, you have to go to Jnani people. You have to seek their guidance.
That is what we are doing, sir.
That is what I'm doing all the time. In fact, there are many times when my young faculty come to me and they are unhappy with me for some decision.
Okay.
And there are many times I've told them, I said, yaar, मैं भी सीख रहा हूँ director होके ना, मुझसे भी गलती होती है ना.
Yes,
So I feel that if you are willing to learn, if you are willing to improve, whatever responsibility has been given to you.
Yes.
So at Kanpur IIT, for example, I was given responsibility to be placement chairman, right? I had to handle the placement of the whole institute.
Right, sir.
Now I had to learn how the industry works, how the recruitment happens, what are the nuances of recruitment.
Right, sir.
And so on and so forth. At one time, I had to do fundraising for the IIT Kanpur. So I had to learn how the fundraising is done.
Yes.
What are the nuances of fundraising? Why somebody gives money to an IIT, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So,
That's true.
so these are totally new sets which you are not born with. But if you feel that you have to do a good job and you're willing to learn and spend time on it, you can do a better job. I think any good academician should be able to become a good director or academic leader, provided they have the mindset to learn.
Great, great. So Professor Jain very truly said, sir, it is the mindset, and learning is lifelong process, and a teacher should always be a student also ready to learn. Wonderful
Yes.
learning from you, sir. That is great. Professor Jain, I would like to come to now next part of our interaction that is related to universities. We know IITs are the premium institute in India, sir, and we all are proud of it. But when we compare ourselves globally, the situation may be different. There are other institutes also which are very good institutes. I want to ask you, sir, why do Indian universities not rank among top universities globally? There are certain rankings we have. In that, Indian universities do not are among the first 100 or something. So, what is your take on that, sir?
Because they are not good enough to be top 100. That's it. Very simple.
Very straight answer. But why? But why, sir? That is true.
So if you say that why Sudhir Jain could not win this 100-meter race, it is because he couldn't run fast enough, right?
Yes,
Therefore,
that's true.
he could not.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. My simple question is, like in any universities, the most precious resource is human resource. At least I do not have doubt in my mind that when you compete exams like JEE, which you ranked in double digit, which is world's most difficult exam, sir, we get students, very capable students in IITs. We get very capable faculty also like you in IITs, and human resource is the most precious resource in any organization. Despite of that, we are not among top 100. So what is the criteria?
See, the way I see is that if you have the best people or if you have the top quality people, best is difficult to define, but let's say top quality, you need to give them a good platform to do well, right? What is that platform? That platform is the ecosystem, the environment, the governance system, the empowerment system, the encouragement, the checks and balances, right? The reward for good performance, but also maybe some sort of a discouragement if performance is poor, right?
Yes, sir.
And so on and so forth. So I think if there is one thing that Indian institutions need to focus on, it is to think about how that platform is created.
Right.
What are the characteristics of that platform, right?
Yes.
Now, I will take a very simple example of why IITs today are premier institutions in India. To my mind, it is because of two things that IITs have done well. It's a very simplistic answer, but if I have to give that answer in one or two sentences, why IITs have done well, it is for two reasons. One, the tremendous autonomy and trust that was given to IITs by the Act of Parliament that defined what is an IIT. Right? So, आपने trust दे दिया. आपने कहा कि भाई, we will trust you. We will give you autonomy to decide how much to teach, what to teach. You don't need anybody's permission. Nobody will tell you what to teach. आप पढ़ाओ, आप करो अच्छा काम. Right? That is what. Second thing that IITs did was to maintain very high level of integrity. That we will not favor anybody for admissions. We will not favor people for recruitment. We will not allow any financial bunglings or pilferages and things like that, right? So as a result today, the system trusts IITs. The public trusts IITs. The bureaucrats, the politicians, they trust IITs, right? One of the honorable ministers said in IIT Gandhinagar, in front of 20 people, that ever since I have become a minister, I have not received any calls asking my help for a job in an IIT.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Right? Because people now understand that if you want to become a faculty or you want to become a registrar in an IIT, sifarish nahi chalegi. Right? So to my mind, this is a basic thing that enabled these institutions to do so well. Now, if you can do more of that, not only to IITs, but to the entire university system, to entire college system, to entire school system, I think the entire environment will improve.
That's true.
Right? It is a pyramid that you have to create, where if you want to go higher, you have to create wider base.
That's true, sir.
IT system alone cannot be very high if the base is very narrow. वो stable नहीं होगा. Right? For a pyramid, you need the more and more height you go, more and more base you need. So you need to realize that IIT Gandhinagar cannot do well beyond a certain point if other institutions are not doing well.
Okay. So they are interlinked. That is what you are saying, sir? They're all interlinked.
Yes.
So when the ranking starts improving, it will start improving for all the institutes because of the ecosystem.
I would say that the entire ecosystem should improve for the ranking, for some of our universities to go higher and higher in the ranking. Once in a while, it may happen that there may be some institution that may run ahead of everybody else.
Right, sir.
But it will not be a very stable solution.
Right, sir.
Because we are part of the same society, we are part of the same ecosystem.
Right, sir.
Right? Where is my student coming from? My student is coming from, after doing his BTech from somewhere else, he's coming to do PhD with me. Yes. My student is coming to do BTech with me after doing his math, physics, chemistry somewhere else.
That's true.
My faculty is coming who has done his own undergraduate studies in some other college.
Right, sir.
Right? My faculty has done his PhD in some college in India or in overseas. So I'm part of that same ecosystem. And if the rest of the ecosystem remains poor, our universities cannot be top 100.
Right, sir. Professor Jain, let me put this question in a different way, sir. When we talk about creating global universities, there cannot be a better person than you, because you have experience of IIT Kanpur, the most premium institute of our nation. You have experience as being student of premium institute like Roorkee. You have experience of top global universities like California Institute of Technology. So after such wonderful experience, and after that having so many years of experience of creating a new premium institute like IIT Gandhinagar, my question to you, sir, is what are the bottlenecks or what are the constraints which are stopping us? And when I'm saying us, I'm asking you also, sir. You are at the driver's seat. What are stopping you from creating such wonderful institutes?
So I think the biggest problem is lack of aspiration, lack of ambition.
Among you have, sir, I know.
All of us.
Okay.
All of us. Okay. We are holding ourselves back.
Okay.
Whether we, the academics, whether we, the bureaucrats, whether we, the politicians, whether we, the policymakers.
That is mindset, sir, or ecosystem?
Mindset.
Okay.
Mindset. Lack of aspiration, right? Lack of ambition, right? I remember when I joined IIT Gandhinagar and I said, I will emphasize on faculty recruitment. And I was very, very slow in recruiting faculty in the beginning because the applications that were coming to me were not exciting me. Right? So some of my young faculty, I had very few faculty, they were getting desperate. They were saying, to fir classes kaun padhayega? Right? And I said, we will do something. We will bring temporary faculty, part-time faculty. You may need to do a bit more teaching. But if I recruit a weak faculty candidate, he will be there with me for 40 years, and I don't want that. I remember one of my young faculty member one day said to me in desperation, he said, you mean, Professor, then you will bring foreign PhDs to IIT Gandhinagar? You know, that tells you the mindset limitation, right? And I said, yeah, I mean, they don't have two horns. They're not very special gifts of God. Just because somebody is a foreign PhD, it's not a special gift of God. Just because somebody is from an Indian university doesn't mean he's inferior. I will look for good people. Doesn't matter where they come from.
Yes.
Right. So my thought is that we have very big challenge of all of us not thinking
it's true.
big enough and we are satisfied with small things. We are satisfied with competing with others who are already weak, right?
It's true.
I tell in IIT Gandhinagar that, look, I'm very proud of what IIT Gandhinagar is doing. I'm very happy with it. I have great reasons to celebrate what my colleagues have been able to achieve here. But my aspirations are still higher. So every day I am always in the mindset of how can we do even better, even better, even better, right? That aspiration deficit, I think, is the biggest bottleneck. That is one, right? The second biggest deficit is trust deficit. Okay. And that trust deficit is connected with ethical deficit, right? Now, if there is one profession where trust and ethics are most crucial, I think it is education.
Yes, very true.
Right? If you are going to produce future generations and not give them good values, what are you doing? And how can you give them good values if you are not having a strong ethical framework where people will trust you, right? Now, IITs have reached where they have reached because of this trust and this ethical framework. But I would like to go deeper, much deeper, in faculty promotions, for example. Right? I would like it to go much deeper in everything that we do in IIT system, right? Where we should be able to trust a director to take discretionary decisions, subjective decisions, where a director would not say, sorry, I can't take panga, I have to treat every faculty member equally, right? If you have an ethical framework, your director should be able to say that these faculty members have done well, I'm going to put more fuel to their fire.
Yes.
Right? And these faculty members don't have enough fire, so I'm not going to waste my fuel putting on that, right? But that cannot happen if those director has not earned the trust.
It's true.
Right? So to my mind, if you can build a aspiration, if you can build trust and ethics, then next level is to create systems, right systems. Right. So even if you have the aspirations, you want to be the best college, even if you're a very honest man and everybody trusts you, still, third thing that I think is very critical is what are the systems in place you are putting in, right? For example, just to give a sense to you, when I came to IIT Gandhinagar in 2009, I said to my undergraduates, at the time only undergraduates, tab tak masters to shuru nahi kiya. I said, I will treat you as adults, my equals, and I will give you full freedom and full autonomy. But I will also hold you accountable. And I will not deal with your parents when I have to give you severe punishment. I want you to be men and women, not boys and girls. Right? Now, that statement alone has changed the way students are growing in IIT Gandhinagar. That statement alone has changed the student-teacher relationship. That statement alone has made the dean of students' job so much easier, the warden's job so much easier. Right? And that statement alone has converted the entire student body not as a problem or as a potential problem, but as a great solution, as a great participants in solving problems. Now that idea that undergraduates can be treated as adults and trusted for their behavior, that need not come even if you have good aspirations, even if you have good values and ethics, right? Right? So this is just an example I'm saying. So you need to create those systems, governance models, yes, which will give you the desired results, right? If you do all of those three, then next fourth thing will perhaps be resources, money, right? That is when the buildings, the equipments, the various other things come in. Right? True. So this is to me a basic framework that I'm imagining today. IIT Gandhinagar will belong to nobody and IIT Gandhinagar will belong to everybody.
Okay. Good.
Okay? What does it mean? It means that nobody can say IIT Gandhinagar is my institution and it is not your institution.
Mhm.
Okay. So, for example, if you are a student in another college, you want to use my library or laboratory, you should be able to use it.
Yes, it's true.
Right? If you are a professor somewhere else and you want to give lectures to IIT Gandhinagar, you should be able to do it.
Mhm.
Right?
Good.
If you are anybody who wants to contribute, we will welcome it.
Mhm.
If you are anybody who wants to benefit from IIT Gandhinagar, we will welcome it. Right?
Great.
Now, that system that has brought us immense benefits. Right? Dr. Vijayan, you will be surprised that we have raised almost 75 crore rupees worth of donations.
Mhm.
When I don't have even alumni, rich alumni, because my students are very young, they just graduated, right? So out of 75 crore rupees, more than 99% money is non-alumni money.
Okay.
Right? Okay. And another about 25 crore rupees are in agreements, commitments for which money will come over next few years. Right? How did that happen? That happened because we said, you are welcome. Come and engage with us. Come and teach here. Come and meet our students. Right? So I feel that if you create the right model and system with aspiration, with trust, I think there is a lot that can be achieved.
Great. Professor Jain, for running any academic institute, you need to have a great academic administrator, which you are. But sir, our country is a huge country, lot of universities, and we need many such academic administrators. And largely the responsibility to train such academic administrator is the responsibility of people like you to pass on the baton to the next generation. Sir, how can it be done and how you are doing to create such leadership in your lower ranks? I mean, once you think of not actively getting participated into these activities, next level of leadership should emerge. So how to create that leadership, Professor Jain?
So there are two levels of this question I will answer. One is that what you are at the age of 50 is not what happened to you between 48 and 50 or 45 and 50. What you are at 50 is what happened to you when you were born up to 50.
Yes.
Right? Which means, what did I learn from my parents? What did I learn from my primary school teachers? What did I learn from my college teachers? What did I learn from my PhD advisor? What did I learn from my students when I became professor?
Yes.
What did I learn from my seniors, my colleagues? So what a person is a sum total of all of those experiences.
Right.
Right.
True.
So to my mind, leadership qualities cannot be given as a vaccine or as an injection to a person at a certain age or a certain experience level. Okay, now these are the professors. We need to prepare them to become directors. So now we will, give them some dose of leadership and they will become good leaders. That doesn't work to me. To me, the basic metal of a person, the basic configuration of that person is a lifelong process. And that is where our universities and our colleges and our schools have a great responsibility. What are we teaching those students, right? Is my school teaching the values of ethics? Is my school encouraging my children to take responsibility? What is leadership? Leadership is about taking responsibility, right? Is about solving problems. Are my schools teaching them to solve problems? Right? How many of us are happy with the schooling and the college education that we have today? Right? So, to my mind, there is a leadership crisis in our country, not only in education, but perhaps in every field.
Yes.
Right? And that is partly because of the way we run our school system, the way we run our education enterprise, that there's too much emphasis on teaching physics, chemistry, math, Hindi, English, whatever those subjects are. And we are forgetting that as a college, it is really the whole human that we are dealing with. Right? So when I look at IIT Gandhinagar students, I don't look at how well I'm teaching them civil engineering. I'm looking at them, am I preparing them better humans? who happen to be civil engineers.
Right.
And this is something I've said so many times in my speeches to my students, that at IIT Gandhinagar, I'm not looking at you with a narrow lens of how to make you a good electrical engineer. I'm looking at how you will emerge as a responsible citizen who will solve problems in your subject, problems in your life, problems in your family, problems in your society, in your neighborhood, who happens to be a good electrical engineer. Right? So that is one answer I have. That is one. Second, that is one side of it, right? That is the general answer. The second, I think, is a very important problem for Indian society, is that in Indian society, we don't encourage others to grow. We try to cut to size anybody who is growing, right? So this is a general insecurities that many of us tend to have, wherein we say, okay, this guy is talking too much, this guy is becoming very difficult to deal with, so how do I cut him to size, right? Because I want to keep my position secure. So I don't want to encourage other people, right? If there is an opportunity, for example, to go and give a major lecture, it should be Sudhir Jain who should give that lecture, not somebody else, because then somebody else will become known that he's a better lecturer than Sudhir Jain, right? So Sudhir Jain should make sure that others don't get that opportunity, right? That, to my mind, that is also a factor in our institutions, that we don't encourage our deans, our professors, our faculty to take responsibilities early and give them credit for it.
Yes.
Right? My formula is that if any leader is not worried about the credit, if I don't need the credit, and I'm willing to give credit to the people below me, they will give infinite amount of work and passion for me. If you are willing to share the credit, right? So suppose I gave a good idea and my dean has been able to implement it. Right? Now, if I say, oh, I gave the idea and he implemented it, that's not the best way. I say it was his idea and he implemented it. What a great dean he is.
Yes,
right?
yes.
The guy will give me his life. He will do more for me. Right?
Yes.
And if all my deans, all my professors, all my student leaders, all my staff, if they do more and more, I will get credit in some form.
Right, sir.
They will say, "Iska college acha chalta hai."
Mhm.
So I will get benefited anyway. I'm
Right.
not going to lose out in the long run. But in the short run, just share more credit to people than what you think that they deserve. And it works very well.
Right.
So you need to prepare leadership, I think, both level, at a mass level, where your schooling, your college, education, all of that has to be preparing good, effective humans with good values, good attitude, good life skills, in addition to subject knowledge.
It's true.
But
Right.
once you are in a leadership position, you are a head of the department, you are a dean, you are a director, you are a vice chancellor, whatever it is, then how do you encourage your colleagues, give them more responsibility, give them early responsibility? At IIT Gandhinagar, I have been very particular that I don't care about seniority. I care about capability, right? So we had an additional secretary in Government of India visiting us one day, and I was showing him the campus around. And he was very surprised that my dean of campus construction was an assistant professor.
Okay.
And my associate dean was an associate professor.
Okay.
You see, the dean is an assistant professor and the associate dean is an associate professor. And he said,
Okay.
Professor Jain, how did that happen? I said, look, this guy is an associate professor because he is more accomplished academically. He has written more papers, guided more PhDs, has been in the business for more years. But when it comes to dealing with CPWD, when it comes to dealing with the users on whatever requirements, the other person has an edge. So he becomes the dean, and the other person becomes the associate dean, and it is comfortable. Both of them are very comfortable. They're very happy to work with each other.
Right, sir.
Now, I've been able to build that culture in IIT Gandhinagar, where seniority would not be the measure, but the
Criteria.
merit.
That's true. Great. Professor Jain, now you represent two kind of IITs, which we call old IITs and which we call new IITs. My next question to you is, who has greater potential to become globally successful? The old established institutes, IITs, or the new institutes like IIT Gandhinagar? Odds in favor and odds against.
See, I would say that the both have chance to become globally competitive. Firstly, globally competitive, globally recognized, you cannot be in 1 year or 5 years. It has to be a sustained effort for several decades, right? So the first and the most important thing is, do you have continuity of your mission, of your vision, of your methodology, of your leadership attitude, all of that over long years? One thing that is very bad for educational institutions is the U-turns, the sharp U-turns. If one vice chancellor comes and he says, I will focus only on research, and then next vice chancellor comes and he says, yeah, research is what is this? First focus on teaching. And third vice chancellor comes and says something else. Then the faculty and students get totally confused. That doesn't work. So you have a very good chance of old as well as new becoming globally competitive, provided firstly there is a long-term sustained effort in that direction. That is one, right? The challenge that older universities have is that aspiration is more difficult to build in older university, because people become cynical. People say, पिछला vice chancellor आया था, उसने भी ये बोला था, ये तो होता नहीं है. People don't do it. This is all slogan, this is all drama. So there is a lot more cynicism, more skepticism, and more resistance to change in older institutions. In younger institutions, you have youth, which is always optimistic. That is what is so special about youth, that they trust easily, they aspire high, and I think it is easier to motivate the younger people. That is what my experience at IIT Gandhinagar has been, that younger people are always forthcoming with a new vision, with a new idea, and they're willing to challenge the status quo. So in that sense, an institution like IIT Gandhinagar has a better chance. But I think there is no free lunch either for the older institution or the new institution. It has to be a long-term effort, sustained effort.
Right, sir. Professor Jain, my next question is related to this only. Like, what IIT Gandhinagar is doing differently from already established IITs, or it is only, as we say, that if there's a very big banyan tree, a new tree cannot grow under its shades. So, are the new IITs trying to emulate or growing under the shades of old IITs, or is IIT Gandhinagar trying to do something different? And why a student, UG level student or PG level student, should choose IIT Gandhinagar instead of choosing the old IITs?
I think you asked two questions. I'll just focus first on the first question, and if I miss the second question, remind me later. You see, when I came in 2009 to IIT Gandhinagar, I made a statement. I said, my father wanted me to do better than he did. And my grandfather wanted my father to do better than my grandfather did. That is how the civilizations have grown. Right. All parents want children to do better, because children have the advantage of the parents, and whatever parents have learned, whatever resources parents have collected, whatever opportunities parents are able to provide. So next generation supposedly does better. So my position in 2009 was, and it still is, that the old IITs have done a huge amount of quality work over the last 60, 70 years. In a country like India, where institutions have not sustained excellence for long years. So as new IITs, we must take advantage of whatever the father has done. So I look at old IITs as their father institution, right? So whatever they have done well, we should take. But we cannot emulate them. We cannot try to become like that, right? That would be like my son trying to be like me, or I trying to be like my father was, or my father trying to be like his father was. That will be very negative in some sense, right? What we have to do is, we have to say what my father could not do, but I'm in a better position to do. Right. So as a new IIT, I should be able to say, all right, these are the things that old IITs have given me, which are good. Let's take them. But these are the problems of old IITs, which is very hard to solve for them, which I can prevent here, which I can avoid here. The mistakes that old IITs made, I can avoid those mistakes. The old IITs cannot do certain experiments, I can do certain experiments. Just as at my age of 61 years, my body has become very rigid. But a 10-year-old child, this body is very flexible. So a 60-year-old IIT also tends to be a bit rigid in decision making, while a 10-year-old IIT will be more flexible in decision making. Let's take advantage of that.
Yes.
Let's take advantage of that. So the way I see it is that new IIT should aspire to be version 2.0 of the IIT system. It is like software, right? The version 2 is better than version 1.
Yes.
We should do much, much better than the old IITs without disrespecting them, but taking good things from them. And old IIT should be proud of it.
Yes.
IIT Kanpur should be proud that, all right, they must have taught something good to Sudhir, that he's able to do well at IIT Gandhinagar. I think they should take credit for that they taught me for 25 years. Yeah.
Yes. Great. Professor Sudhir, next question in this very question which I asked was, why a student should join IIT Gandhinagar? UG level, PG level?
You see, the students' success at the end of it depends on two key factors. One is what that student is. What is his or her personality? What is inside? What is the aspiration? What is the inherent strength in that student, right? So you will see students coming out of even not so good colleges doing extremely well. Right?
Yes.
So these are the students who will do well wherever you put them.
It's true.
But also students are shaped by the college.
It's true.
Right? So if I were to create a matrix on a 0 to 10 or 1 to 10, let's say, for the student capability, and 1 to 10 is the college, what it is doing to you. The end product is the multiplication of the two.
True.
Right?
True.
So a student who is 10 out of 10 goes to a college which is only 5 out of 10 will be 50.
Okay. Yeah.
But a student who is 5 out of 10 going to a 10 out of 10 college will also become 50.
Yes. Yes.
Right? That's how I see it.
It's true.
Now, I think as a college, as an institution, we at IIT Gandhinagar give tremendous focus on students. In fact, my slogan from 2009 onwards was students first. That's it. That's the slogan. In IIT Gandhinagar, if you talk to my students, if you talk to my faculty, if you talk to my staff, they will say IIT Gandhinagar practices students first. Okay, what does it mean? It means that we are here for the students. The students are not here for us. Our primary responsibility is with the student, right?
Yes.
Now, remember, you did a PhD. When typically you go to a IIT and you evaluate a faculty for promotion, what do you ask? You ask how many papers you published,
Yes.
how many PhDs you guided, right? And then the faculty member says, I guided 5 PhDs and I was able to publish 50 papers, whatever that number is. Right? In IIT Gandhinagar, I'll ask different question. I'll say, you guided 5 PhD, tell me what are they doing?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why? Because if there is a candidate A whose students have done PhD and gone to become professors in other top institutions, and there is another faculty whose PhD students have gone to ordinary colleges to teach, I will rate the first one better. Even if his number of PhDs may be less, even though his number of papers may be less, because he has prepared his PhD students better, right? So now I'm saying that when you have a PhD student, don't look at him only as to how many papers he can help you publish or how much interesting research he can do, but also prepare him to compete for a job in an IIT, for example, right? So I think the emphasis that we give on students and their growth and their learning and build leadership in them, I think is unprecedented. I don't think there will be many institutions in the country who can compete with what attention we give to student welfare, student growth, student development, right?
Great.
We put in a lot of resources, lot of money, lot of faculty time in preparing students. My guess is, you see, this is an open challenge I give to JEE students. Every time for last 12 years, when a new batch of students come to us, in my first meeting with them, I say that, look, you are very unhappy that you couldn't get a better rank, because if you had better rank, you would have gone to an old IIT.
Yes.
You came to IIT Gandhinagar because you couldn't get a old IIT, right? And they agree. And I say to them that in 5 weeks' time, you will be very happy that you made a few mistakes in your JE paper, because of which you got a lower rank and you ended up at IIT Gandhinagar.
Great, sir.
Okay.
What an
And
inspiration.
it happens. It happens.
Okay.
I challenge you to do this survey with my students.
Okay. Great, sir.
Okay.
Hmm.
There are students who in their farewell speeches have said this.
Mhm.
That Professor Jain challenged us, and we certainly within a few weeks, within a month, within 2 months, we were convinced that we were very lucky that we didn't get a high rank and we ended up at IIT Gandhinagar.
Great.
Right? To me, that is what business an institution should be in, and we are in. That we will prepare our students well, and we will give them the best possible education, the best possible growth opportunity. It is very unfortunate that people don't have time to look at those aspects in deciding which college to go to.
Yes.
They only say, all right, last year this IIT closed at this rank, therefore this IIT
Yes.
must be better than the other
Yes.
IIT. That
Yes,
is
yes.
unfortunate. Yeah.
Yes,
But
yes,
that's
that's true. That's true. But things will change, sir. And I tell you, this is the most inspirational line I have ever heard. That you better made the mistakes and you ended up in IIT Gandhinagar. And now you realize that was right. That is the most inspiration, sir, for any student. That's great. Professor Jain, my next question is very, very important question, sir. And it is related to faculties being recruited in new IIT system. We know that faculty and teachers are the basically heart and soul of any organization or any institute. They represent the human resource of the institute. I would like to bring to your kind notice certain things, sir, before I ask you very precise question. Number one, when we recruit faculty, why there is so much rigidity? Why can't we hire people from abroad, foreign citizens? You just mentioned some example also. Why can't we have people from foreign who are not Indian national as faculty? Why can't we have people on contract or not permanent post? Why can't we have people from industries, the people who are doing really good, because maybe students need that? And Professor Jain, I have been the part of this entire process myself. I know that when a faculty is recruited, his research papers are seen, his academic background is seen, but his teaching skill, whether you can stand and teach and make your concept clear to student, that is not the process basically during the recruitment. And the repercussion of that is when a new student joins, because I'm in contact with so many thousand students, they go to IIT, they say, प्रोफेसर बहुत फंडू है सर, प्रोफेसर को नॉलेज बहुत है, लेकिन क्या उसने पढ़ाया, वी डोंट अंडरस्टैंड दैट. So that point problem is, I think, related to the recruitment only. After having said all these things, sir, my question to you is, what IIT Gandhinagar is doing to attract best teachers? And we should not mix it with the researcher, teacher only, sir.
So, firstly, the autonomy that the IIT system has,
Right, sir.
it doesn't stop IITs to hire foreign faculty.
Okay.
Okay. So I have a young lady from Korea, Korean origin.
Okay. So she is citizen of Korea.
She's citizen. I have a gentleman from Canada, white
Okay.
Canadian. I mean, these are all non-Indian origin people I'm talking about.
So it can be done.
Okay. I have a young lady from Turkey.
Okay.
I have a young non-Indian origin lady from United States. Okay. So, firstly, this is a false notion that
Okay.
Foreign nationals cannot be recruited. That is one. Okay.
Right.
The second is why we cannot recruit people on contract. Again, that is a false notion. We recruit a lot of people on contract. The reason that we don't trust our vice chancellors, we sometimes say, you should make sure that he has a PhD, make sure he is a first division in MSc, because they worry that he may bring his own chelas to the positions, right? But if you have trust and if you have ethical environment, you can do all of that. Now, third, you are right. We, in the country as such, when hiring faculty, we are not looking at them as teachers as often as we should, right? But I think there is a second side of it. Even those who are good teachers, After a while, they start to resent teaching because you are not giving enough weightage to teaching in giving respect to the faculty. If you will celebrate only research and not celebrate quality teaching, slowly people will move towards quality research, not towards teaching. So I think this is where the university's governance system, that is what initially when I was talking to you about, I said you need systems. So you need systems which will appreciate good quality teaching, good quality research, but also good quality engagement with the institution. There's a third thing. You know, I teach my class, I teach very well, I publish my papers. But hostel में आग लग जाए मुझे कोई लेना देना नहीं है. Right? College में problem हो, मेरे को problem नहीं है. Right? I'm not interested in the college. That is a problem to me because then that is not a good sign of a good college. So to my mind, all of that, any good institution should be able to handle. At least IITs, there is no restriction on that. Number one. Number two, at IIT Gandhinagar, we take very, very thorough process for faculty recruitment. Our faculty process, recruitment process is very, very thorough, very different from typical IITs. Okay. We actually make a faculty candidate teach a live class, a physical class.
Okay.
We give them a topic. Okay, this is the topic you have to teach to third year mechanical engineering students or whatever, second year MSc students in mathematics. And every student is asked to fill up a form at the end of 1 hour. How good was this teacher?
Okay.
How suitable is he as a teacher? And we evaluate faculty teaching every semester. I can today tell you how was the teaching score rated by faculty member X in 2011 and 12. When I sit for promotions, my staff gives me a full table that this particular person has taught these courses over last 5 years or 10 years. And these were the scores that the teaching received. Right? We will take teaching very, very seriously and we have very good results. We have very, very high quality of satisfaction. You will not hear from IIT Gandhinagar students that kind of a statement.
Great.
Teaching can be learned. See, there is another thing, Dr. Vijayan, that is thing that anybody who wishes to do better teaching, they can learn to teach.
Right. That's true.
Research cannot be learned.
That's true. That's very true.
Research, you cannot impose somebody to go and learn research, but you can tell them to learn teaching.
That is very good, Dr. Professor Jain. That is, I think that system has been created in IIT Gandhinagar to train the teachers for better teaching. And that is, I think, the whatever method you just told, I have not heard of this method in the other IITs of getting the feedback of mentors and it becoming the part of promotional things. So that is a system which you told is something which is unique in IIT system for me also. Professor Jain, my next question is related to some global universities. We talk about MIT, Stanford, Harvard, which attract the best students in the world for all their courses. In contrast to that, when we talk about IITs do not attract global students. How can we do that? How can Indian universities attract the best global talents in our country also?
So I think the biggest stumbling block in this is firstly the Indian universities appreciating that it is good for them to build global talent. Right? Many of our colleagues don't think that they should give priority to bring students from other countries. Okay. If you talk to many academic leaders, they might say, "Oh, India में तो already इतने students हैं, उनको ही admission नहीं मिलता, तो हम दूसरे college, दूसरे country के student का क्यों चिंता करेंगे?"
Yes,
right?
Yes.
To me, those are short-sighted views because when you bring global talent, several things happen. One, your own students, Indian students, learning improves quite a bit because they learn from cross-cultural experience that they have with a student from Turkey or a student from Nepal or wherever. Right. The second thing that happens is that these students become your ambassadors when they go back to their country. Right. And they then help you raise more opportunities, more resources. Right. The third, the quality of input to your class improves. Naturally, if you are offering 10 PhD slots in mechanical engineering, and you're looking at only Indian students. But if you, on the other hand, are willing to look at internationally available pool of students, chances are that you will be able to take some Indian students, some foreign students, and on the whole, you will be able to get better PhD students, right? So your quality of students will go. So my thought is that the first and the basic requirement for getting more international students to our colleges, to our institutions, is for the management, for the leadership to appreciate why it is important for us to get international students. Once you agree to that yes, this is what my priority, this is what I want to do, then you have to give time and effort and money. It will not happen just because you said, all right, now today onwards, I'm getting ready to get foreign students. Dr. Vijayan, please bring me students, I'll admit them. No, you have to bring them. You have to do the advertising, you have to do the outreach, you have to meet the colleges in other countries, students in other countries, professors in other countries, and try to encourage them to look at you carefully and see why their students should look at possibility of joining you as a student. You also need certain infrastructural changes. You can't have third class infrastructure in terms of hostels, in terms of food, in terms of hygiene, and expect that international students will come to you. Right. You have to improve your internal systems. You have to improve your internal structures, internal mechanisms. And I don't believe that creating an international student hostel solves the problem, because some of the Indian academic leaders, what they say is that, all right, our toilets are dirty, our hostels are not so clean, we will create an international student hostel, which will be clean. That doesn't work. The international student should live with my students as if he's or she's a part of the whole thing, not as a separate body of students.
Yes.
So we also need to create more, perhaps, friendly systems for government controls, like visas and registrations of foreign students and things like that. I think this can be done, and this should be a priority for good institutions to bring foreign students.
Great, sir. Professor Jain, I want to ask you related to postdoctorate fellowships. Whenever somebody is doing PhD, he's always in the state of fear that what after PhD? Especially if I talk about India, whenever student joins PhD, first thing comes to the mind is, 5 years. Then what after 5 years? Will we get job? Shall we get industrial jobs? And that particular fear is lesser in abroad or foreign national, because they get postdoctoral fellowship, which at least helps them to sustain. Professor Jain, my question to you is, why in India we have very less postdoctorate fellowships, while when we compare it with the foreign nations, there are foreign universities have a lot of postdoctoral fellowship. So any student who is doing PhD from India thinks of getting postdoctorate fellowship or from foreign country only. They do not think of getting options in India. What is the main reason for that, sir?
Again, I think there are two problems there. One is the priority of the administration, that postdoc, right? The second thing that is very interesting, that I believe is a problem, is that who is going to pay for that postdoctoral fellowship?
Yes.
Right. Now, suppose college is willing to pay, the university is willing to pay, right?
Yes, sir.
Then the faculty says, all right, you are paying for this fellowship. Why should you work with Sudhir Jain or Vijayendra? Why not work with the other guys?
Right.
You are doing a favor to Sudhir Jain or Vijayendra, for whom you are hiring a postdoc. So the faculty might say, all right, this guy should now work for 10 people or all the whole department. He cannot work for individuals because the university is paying for it, right? Those kind of mindsets are there. I think so. One problem that we have is mindset, the systems, right? In IIT Gandhinagar, when we wrote our proposal for Institution of Eminence, remember 2.5 years back, there was this competition for top 10 universities to be given Institution of Eminence. We wrote our proposal. At that time, we had 0.2 postdocs for every faculty, 20%. So whatever is the faculty number, 20% were postdoc. And in that proposal, I checked recently, we wrote that in 5 years' time, we will be 40% postdocs. Whatever is if 100 faculty, 40 postdocs, right? And in 10 to 15 years, we will like to reach 50%. So we are at 20%. In 5 years, we will go to 40%. In 10 to 15 years, we will stabilize at 50%. That we wrote 2.5 years back. we today have 50%.
Great.
IIT Gandhinagar today has more than 50 postdoctoral fellows sitting in the campus, right?
Great.
Now, again, it is possible when faculty is raising money, they are bringing some money for salaries, right? So there are people who are fully paid by the faculty.
Okay.
There are also people who are fully paid by external agency. There are government-funded postdoctoral fellowships. Then there are postdoctoral fellowships where faculty is paying 50% and IIT Gandhinagar is paying 50%.
Mm-hmm.
And also there are postdoctoral fellowships where IIT Gandhinagar is paying fully, 100%, right? Now, if you are able to run this system in a manner which is not causing resentment to faculty, which is merit-based, which is fair, which is transparent, then I don't see where is the problem, right? And these postdoctoral fellows will help the faculty scale up their own research, will mentor the younger students.
Right, sir.
And they will be very important part of the research enterprise of the institute. So I think you are raising a very important point that
Yes,
our research-oriented universities need to look at postdoctoral fellows
yes,
or research scientists or people who are not faculty but somewhat senior scientists,
right, sir.
how to avail their work for the institute.
Right, sir. Professor Jain, my next interaction point is very, very important related to industry-academia interaction. Professor, when we see such a connectivity between industry and academia, we see the universities like Stanford University, and we see the connectivity between Stanford University, Silicon Valley. There's a seamless connectivity. But that particular chemistry is missing in India. When we talk about, I keep on interacting with the industry people, sir. They say that we have the problems and IITs have that capability to solve those problems. Industries say our problems are not solved within particular time. IITs, faculties and academicians say, if you bound us by time, research or creativity will not come. So, sir, largely what we find is our industries do not get the solution in IITs, and our IITs do not get the funding, as you said, and maybe we can link it with the kind of scholarships which are to be provided by faculty to the students, whether it is a research fellow or it is postdoctorate fellow. If we get industry problems, obviously funding can be there and industries are ready to give fund. Why that lag is there, sir? Why that interaction is missing in India?
So this is a very, very fundamental question again, that firstly, our universities, our institutions are very inward looking, not outward looking. You see, if you look at the head of the departments, where is their time going? If you look at the vice chancellors or the directors, where is their time going? They are doing internal management. They are busy solving the internal problems. They are busy signing the papers. They are busy resolving the conflicts, the right to information applications, the court cases, the construction. Most of the time is going in inward management.
Right, sir.
So their vision is very inward looking.
Right, sir.
Right. Now, I have when I make a presentation, sometimes I have a PowerPoint slide where I show that there is a circle and administration is sitting on that circle. Okay. And inside the university is the student, the teacher, the staff, the teaching, the research, the laboratories, the infrastructure, and he is focused on handling that enterprise which is inward looking. If he can create an equilibrium where internal system is working on autopilot, where his time is not going in internal things, where procurement file is not taking his time, where procurement file is coming clean and he can sign that paper without spending too much time on it, then he can look outward, right? And we can become an outward looking universities, externally facing universities, which is what is outside. Outside is industry, outside is alumni, outside is philanthropic organizations, outside is government organizations, government bureaucrats, whatever that is, right? Now, if you look at outside, that is what brings you nutrition to the university. What is nutrition? As you rightly said, if I work with industry, they give me interesting problems to solve. They give me money to solve that problem. If I look at alumni, they give me ideas, they give me opportunities, they give me some donations. Right. If I look at government bureaucrats, they give me more grants perhaps, or they give me a new center for this or that, right? If I look at outside in terms of international universities, I build partnerships, right? and so on and so forth. So to me, the nutrition comes from outside
Right, sir.
into the university. So first, I think the basic fundamental, I think, change is that our universities have to put their house in order so that their time is not going in internal management, but their leadership can be outward looking. That is one fundamental difference, right?
Right.
Now, if as a director, I cannot give time to an industry leader who wants to visit me, then there is a problem. Right?
Right, sir.
I need to be able to give time to people.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
Number two, we are not talking to each other, we are talking at each other.
Right, sir.
Okay, टॉकिंग एट each other में वो यूनिवर्सिटी बोलता है कि यार ये तो ऐसे बोलता है, वो बोलता है, वो ऐसे बोलता है, इससे सॉल्यूशन नहीं निकलता. You talk to each other.
Right.
Right. What we have done at IIT Gandhinagar, Vijay, is we have now several people whose job is to build relationship with industry. These are not academics. These are, two of them are senior people in very senior positions. They worked in industry. So when there is a government organization, when there is a company, when there is a important person who says there is an interesting opportunity or whatever, we want to talk to you, I let one of these people who themselves were part of industry talk to them, right? And they help then find which is the right faculty member. They sit in the meetings with the faculty member, because faculty member doesn't understand the industry, industry doesn't understand the faculty, right? So this person that I have, I call him advisor industry partnerships.
Okay.
Okay. Now what he does is he negotiates if there is a question in MOU, if there is a discussion on how much payment to be made at what stage, whatever are things, I let him help the faculty deal with it, because faculty is not trained to do all that, right? So we need to create systems where industry can engage with the university in an effective manner. We also created, for example, a research park like IIT Madras, and right now already 10 companies are inside IIT Gandhinagar. They are already operating from IIT Gandhinagar. They pay us rent, and their people come here and work, collaborate with our students, our faculty, things like that. So I think this is a very fundamental issue that we need to resolve, and one way to resolve is to give priority to it. But also you need a team of people whose full-time job is to build this relationship between industry and academia.
Right, sir. Professor Jain, I was interacting with Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala of IIT Madras, and he has come out with a wonderful, I'll say, IIT Madras Research Park idea, and it is working also. During the interaction, he told me that we need to come out of our comfort zone. We need to go to industries, and faculty needs to do that. And when I was interviewing him, sir, I realized that sum total of his life was as a professor in IIT Madras. He was into industries, lot of interaction with the industries. So, Professor Jain, what is your view on faculty coming out of their comfort zone, visiting the industries, finding the problems from industries, interacting regularly with the industries? I believe that can create a very good ecosystem for this particular partnership.
I agree with you 100%. So the faculty has to come out of the comfort zone and remain a student and learn new problems, learn new challenges. And the more they do, the more they will grow personally, right? Yes. And my guess is that I would not be what I am today if I had not spent as much time. For example, I trained huge number of professional engineers from the best companies in India, best consulting firms in India on earthquake design of buildings. I taught them, yes, right? And in the process, they taught me, because I had no experience of constructing buildings, but they were experienced in designing or constructing buildings. So I grew, I learned, they learned from me. It improved my research. It improved my effectiveness as an academic. I agree with what Ashok Jhunjhunwala told you. Right, sir. That this has to be a very, very important component of engineering institutions.
That's true, sir. Professor Jain, my next question is related to entrepreneurship. Everybody knows this as a buzzword. Everybody knows that our country requires the entrepreneurs. And when IITs were created, sir, they were not created for job seekers. They were created for job providers. And unless until the students of IITs become entrepreneurs, they have their own startups, employment cannot be created. So what IIT Gandhinagar is doing, sir, to create that entrepreneurial environment in the campus, so that more and more students think of entrepreneurship as option, not seeking jobs or placements in the campus.
Okay, so let me start out by saying that in 2009, when I came here, I said IIT Gandhinagar will focus on students who will graduate and worship Saraswati or Lakshmi.
Both.
They will do PhD and become university professors, IIT professors, and that is Saraswati route. Right. Or they will become entrepreneurs, and that is the Lakshmi route.
Right, sir. Right,
and sir. I stand by that. I stand by that. I say that how many of my students are either giving knowledge to the society, I mean, acquiring and giving knowledge to the society, or how many of them are creating wealth by solving problems of the society, right? That's it. Now, we created our incubation center, incubation policy before we graduated the first students from the institute. In 2012, we graduated first set of students in May. And before that, we approved our incubation policy.
Okay.
And we gave money to a number of our first batch BTech students to set up company. One of the companies is still running and doing extremely well.
Okay.
Okay. So what you are raising is a very basic, very fundamental, very important issue, that we need to create entrepreneurship. Okay. Right. Now that is very high priority for IIT. But let me go into more fundamentals. What is entrepreneurship? See, entrepreneurship is about identifying a need, solving that need,
right,
and then monetizing that solution, isn't it? That is what is the
right.
Now, do you teach to your students to solve the problems? Okay. Are you as a university head solving the problems? Or are you telling your students, क्या करे सरकारी है, हमको अलाउ नहीं है, क्या करे सरकार ने ऐसे बोला, हम नहीं कर सकते, क्या करे हम इंडिया में है इसलिए नहीं कर सकते, क्या करे हम, are you solving problems as a head of the institution? If your people are coming to you and saying, look, our toilets are dirty, are you able to solve that problem? If they say that our mess food is not good, are you able to solve that problem? The day you start solving the problems, of course, you cannot solve them without students' participation. And you start to engage students in solving problems, they will start to move towards entrepreneurship. They will learn how to solve problems. Right? So, I will start from saying that in order to produce entrepreneurial graduates, the universities have to be entrepreneurial. The university administrations have to be entrepreneurial.
Right.
Where they will say, all right, see, when I started IIT Gandhinagar, I didn't have space. I didn't have enough buildings. Right? I had to solve that problem. Right. I couldn't say, all right, since I don't have buildings, therefore no research will happen. Okay, the chemistry lab will not happen or physics lab will not happen. Right? I had to solve those problems.
Right.
And if your faculty, your students start to see that the administration is solving problems and they start to engage in solving the problems, they become problem solvers. That is one thing. Right? The second thing that you need to do is you need to also create a intellectual system of supporting them when they are coming up with an idea.
Right.
So we have an incubation center, we have mentors, we have people to whom they can talk to, we have people who will give them initial funding and create that whole infrastructure. But to me, all of that cannot sit on a weak foundation if the students are learning only textbook problems and textbook solutions. They have to solve real life problems, societal problems. Right? During lockdown, for example, we had 900 construction workers in 6 colonies of IIT Gandhinagar. Right? And we said to ourselves that this is the weakest section of the community. And they are most vulnerable to various problems because of this lockdown. So we said we will focus on that. And we used our students, we used our faculty, we used our staff to solve that problem. Now, if our students are going to construction workers' colonies during lockdown, listening to them, understanding them, helping them solve problems, helping them resolve issues, do you think that when they graduate, they will be better prepared to become entrepreneurial? My answer is yes.
That's true. Professor Jain, you wonderfully related Saraswati and Lakshmi. I want to ask you a question, sir. Can Saraswati and Lakshmi be together? And can our professors in IIT become rich by taking consultancies? They can open their own companies, because if that is done like foreign universities, obviously they will be solving real world problems, and in the process they will be mentoring the budding entrepreneurs. So this entire system again starts from the faculty only. If they are motivated to solve such problems, open their own companies, earn money through that, then I believe it entire system can be very, very effective. So can Lakshmi come to Saraswati? That is a question, sir.
Answer is yes and answer is no, depending on how you look at it. Okay,
Right, sir.
so somebody became a teacher because he was excited. She was excited about knowledge,
Right, sir.
was not excited about money. When I remember when I was a young boy, I knew that as a teacher I will get much lower salary. But if I go into a private or government job, I will get much more money, right? But knowledge was what was exciting to me.
Right, sir.
So to expect that the people who are excited about new knowledge, new uh, research, guiding students, being engaged with students, should also be excited about selling a product, making money out of that product, I think is an unreasonable expectation from faculty in general. Okay, but what is a very good option, or what is very good possibility, or what is a very good way, is that I inspire my students, I prepare them, and they become entrepreneurs where I am their mentor, where I am their partner, where I am a shareholder in some sense, right? So if you see some of the top professors in universities outside who are entrepreneurs or who are running companies, quite often you will find that it is really their students who are the CEOs of those companies.
It's true.
Right. So you need to create a system where the faculty will prepare their students. Together they will create some good research. Suppose you want to create a research on, let us say you solve a problem, let's say water problem. Right? You have found a new way to do desalination of water.
Yes.
Now the people in the coastal area, they don't have drinking water, but they have a lot of ocean water. Now you have found a very interesting way to take this ocean water and make it a drinkable water by doing desalination.
Yes.
Now your PhD students have been working on it, master's students have been working on it, BTech students have been working on it. Now instead of writing papers only, you do the patents and you build a company out of the research that is happening in your laboratory. But you are not selling those products. Your students are doing all of that.
Right, sir.
Right? Now that student has continuous flow of new research that your future students are doing, you are doing.
Yes.
You have a share in that company. And that company continues to do well, and that money starts to continue to come to IIT and to the professor both. So IIT gains some money, the professor gains some money, and the professor becomes rich. That to me is a very good thing. But for somebody who was very passionate about creating a technology for desalination of water, to now say that, okay, you stop doing new research on desalination of water, you now become a businessman and make this product and start to sell it, I think that may not work so well.
That's true. That's true, sir. Professor Jain, I want you to tell us, sir, about these top three universities like Stanford, Harvard, MIT. They all are private universities. When we see India, the situation is different. Top universities are in government or public sector domain. Sir, privatization of IIT system, will that bring them to global higher ranks, or how do you see this entire situation?
You see, if you see America, you also see some of the fantastic public universities, right? You see Berkeley, you see Michigan, you see Urbana-Champaign, and so on and so forth. There are some really good universities, right? So I'm not willing to believe that in order to be a good university, you have to be a private or public. I'm not willing to believe. I think you can create great universities in private. You can also create great universities in public.
Right, sir.
To my mind, the Indian private education model has a fundamental problem. So in last 20 years, a lot of private universities in India have
Come
come.
on.
But barring one or two, or maybe three or four, almost all of them are associated with one wealthy family.
Okay. Yes.
Now, when a wealthy family is associated with the university, it is not bringing the diversity of wealth. It is not bringing continuous inflow of wealth. So let's understand one thing that I strongly believe in. Universities are very expensive proposition.
Yes.
Education to be imparted has a lot of costs with it. And you cannot make great universities by not bringing money either as a grant from the government or as philanthropy or a combination of the two. I don't believe that student tuition fee can run great universities. I don't believe in that. Okay. Now, what works best for IITs is a public-private partnership.
Okay.
So this is again a term that I have been using at IIT Gandhinagar since 2009,
Okay.
where I'm saying that IIT Gandhinagar is a public-private partnership. How? The bills are paid by the government. The electricity bill, the salary bill, the safai, the security, the bills are paid by the government. But excellence is paid by the philanthropy.
Okay.
Okay. So now with donations, I'm able to recruit faculty and I pay them significantly extra money over on top of government money. I give them extra fellowship. I give them extra money.
Okay.
If I need to send my students, my professors abroad and I need money, I use my endowment to give them money, right? If I want to bring a government officer to IIT Gandhinagar on deputation and I need to give them extra money, I give them from my donations, like that, right?
Yes.
So to my mind, if I want to bring a foreign professor and pay him $20,000, I can't pay that from government money. I pay that from private money.
Right, sir.
So to my mind, I think this public-private partnership model where the government is paying the bills, but excellence is paid by the philanthropy, I think is a very robust model. We have tried it at IIT Gandhinagar. It has worked extremely well.
Okay.
We are raising significant amount of money from donations.
Okay.
Uh,
Professor Jain, my next question was related to this only, sir. You earlier also you mentioned that you have raised some 75 crore donation, and donations and endowments is something which actually is largely seen in Western countries. Like the students also get a lot of scholarship through that. Professor Jain, how you are in position to raise that money? Maybe the mantra which you have, if it is shared with others to follow, other directors or other principals can also emulate something like that, what you are doing in IIT Gandhinagar. How it is done, sir?
So the first fundamental is that fundraising is really friends raising.
Okay.
Okay. You become friends. Okay.
Right, sir.
What does that mean? That means that a lot of people start to look at IIT Gandhinagar as a friendly place.
Right, sir.
Right. If they start to become friendly with IIT Gandhinagar and they start to get engaged with IIT Gandhinagar, get involved with IIT Gandhinagar, and they see that, okay, it will benefit IIT Gandhinagar, which is doing well, they will do it. Right.
Right, sir.
So you need to firstly be very open to engage with people.
Right, sir.
Right. You need to share with them what you are doing. You need to listen to them, what they are saying. If they are making some useful suggestions, you should be able to show them that you are open to those suggestions. You are implementing those suggestions, right? You should be very open to that. Second thing, they need confidence that their money will be well utilized.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So you need to have a very clean accounting. You need to have a very clean way of spending money, but reporting money. They should feel confident that the money is not going to a black hole, but every rupee is counted for, right? Things like that, right?
Right.
The next is you need to show how their money was useful. So it should not happen that I forget you after you gave me money.
Okay.
Right.
Right,
so suppose you give me, let's say, 1 crore rupees. Right. Now I feel, okay, he has given me 1 crore rupees, now done. Right. Now I will move on to somebody else.
right,
That doesn't work.
Does not.
I need to show you how important your contribution was, how useful it was, how much difference it made to the lives of the students, and make you feel good that I did something nice, and because of my 1 crore rupees, now IIT Gandhinagar students are benefiting. Now you will come back and you will say, you know, Sudhir Jain, there is a friend of mine who also wants to contribute. I want to introduce you to him. Or you will say, look, Sudhir Jain, I created this professorship, this chair professorship in my father's name.
Right, sir.
And now my wife is saying, how come you didn't create in your mother's name? So I want to now discuss with you, how can I create another chair in my mother's name this time, right?
Right, sir.
So I think we need to have a mindset where we should first see that there is a value in philanthropic money.
Right, sir.
Second, we need to engage with people
Right, sir.
with respect and not look at them as money giving machines.
Right, sir.
You see, there is another problem.
Right.
Quite often we tend to look at a person, wealthy person, and say, "Acha, paise ke liye chalo isse baat karte hain." Now, if he is not giving you money on day one, then he's useless. No, that is not the way it is. Perhaps this person has made money because he has good ideas, because he is capable.
Right, sir.
I want to engage with him on merit. I want to learn from him. I want to engage with him. And later, if he gives me money, that's very nice.
Right. So, Professor Jain, this money which is raised through donations and endowments, is it also used for research work, sir? Are we funding our research also through this such money? Or what are the other sources?
So I'll say that how that money will be used has to be a clarity between you and the donor.
Right, sir.
Okay. So sometimes the donor may say, my money is to be used for giving a scholarship.
Right, sir.
Then you should very strictly ensure that money is only used for scholarship, nothing else.
Right, sir.
Right? Then the donor may say, my money is available for whatever your institute thinks is useful to it, important for it.
Right, sir.
Right? That is where your board of governors or your administration has to have a method by which to decide
Right, sir.
how such money should be utilized. It should not be arbitrary.
Right, sir.
Right? So if somebody gave me 5 crore rupees with the understanding that IIT Gandhinagar can use it in the way it feels like it, then how will that 5 crore rupees will be used? It should be very clearly understood by IIT Gandhinagar. Right? Who will decide that? How will it be decided? Now, when you look at that, then you will find that the donation money at IIT Gandhinagar is used for various purposes, including teaching, including research, including leadership development, including attracting better PhD students, better faculty, and many, many purposes.
Right.
That is where you as a driver of this bus, the university, have to create certain needs where you feel that if you put in some philanthropic money, it will bring value to the college.
Right, sir.
Right. That is how it is done.
Right, sir. Professor Jain, I have already taken a lot of your time, but only last 3 questions. So if you provide me some more time for that, last 3 questions I'll go for, sir. My next question is related to the curriculum part of IIT Gandhinagar. We need to have the curriculum for industry, sir. So do we have some flexibility in curriculum where we are creating the courses which are more industry oriented courses for students? Like we talk about data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Are we creating those kind of courses, sir, for students which make them industry ready?
You see, firstly, IITs have total freedom to design their curriculum.
Right, sir.
They don't need anybody's approvals if they decide that this should be done. That is a number.
Right, sir.
Number 2, we at IIT Gandhinagar have designed our curriculum to prepare students for life and for lifelong learning.
Right, sir.
Right. So, for example, we had a discussion and we realized that our students are very good in solving science and math problems, engineering problems, but they are very poor in writing. So we created a course on writing.
Okay.
A course on writing.
Right.
So because now the student, whether it is a master's student, PhD student, or BTech student at IIT Gandhinagar, learns a course on writing.
Okay.
How to write. I'm not talking about thesis writing, research paper writing, just writing. Right? It may include email, it may include a story, it may include a letter, it may include anything. Writing. Right? Similarly, computer programming, for example. Right? Now, computer programming can be taught in numerous ways, but we are training our students in computer programming in such a way that when the language changes from one language to the other, in good old days, Fortran, Basic, more recently Java, something else, these languages will keep changing. So my curriculum should be such that my student is learning the method of programming, right? His mind is working in a way so that he can create an algorithm and then program it, right? Now, you might say that, look, Professor Jain, you taught him Java, but I needed Basic, or vice versa.
Right, sir.
I will say, fine, yaar, 15 दिन में सीख जाएगा, 1 महीने में सीख जाएगा, don't worry. Right? Because I'm not force-fitting my students for one company or the other company.
Right.
I'm preparing him to become an IAS officer, to become a company executive, to become a university researcher, to become an entrepreneur, anything else that he wishes to do. Right. So that is how I have designed my curriculum.
Right. Great. Professor Jain, you are faculty and academician related to earthquake engineering. You are par excellence in that, sir. You were president of International Association of Earthquake Engineering. So I want you to tell something about earthquake engineering as a research, which your domain you have, and also about this organization, International Association of Earthquake Engineering.
So basically, the humans started to build houses, bridges, and other infrastructure as civilization grew.
That's right.
And then from time to time, the earthquakes would cause damage to those and kill people, cost a lot of losses and various things.
Right, sir.
So more than 100 years back, this started to develop as to how can we build our houses, how can we build our factories, how can we build our bridges in such a way that they will not be damaged or they will not collapse in earthquakes. Right? So that is what is earthquake engineering.
Right.
Earthquake engineering is that earthquakes will be happening from time to time.
Right.
We cannot stop earthquakes from happening, but we can design and build our buildings. We can design our builds, dams, our bridges, our factories in such a way that they can stand. So that is the subject that I was trained in as a young student, and that is what I try to teach to my students over the years. That is what is earthquake engineering. Now, International Association of Earthquake Engineering is a association of national associations of earthquake engineering. So what happens is that India has a national association of earthquake engineering, New Zealand has a national association of earthquake engineering, America has, Japan has, Turkey has, like that. So most of the earthquake prone countries where there are earthquakes, they have their own associations of earthquake engineering. Right. And those associations are members of this International Association of Earthquake Engineering. So International Association of Earthquake Engineering does not have thousands of members individually, but the countries are members, right? And somewhere I think around 2000, I received an invitation to contest election for becoming a member of the executive committee. Okay. And where every country votes. Okay. So every country has one vote. Okay. So Turkey will have one vote, the Japan will have one vote, like that, right? So in around 2000, I think, I contested an election and I was elected as a board member. Okay. And then I remained a board member for 2 terms. Then I was made vice president of the association, and then I was elected as the president of the association. Okay. So that is how it is. From India, I happen to be the second person to become the president of the International Association of Earthquake Engineering over last, I don't know how many years. It is almost now 60 years. It's almost 50 to 60 years old association. And it was a way recognition of what I think India was doing and what I was part of it, I think.
Great. That's great. Professor Jain, when we talk about earthquake engineering as a master's course, should it only be for civil engineers or should it be for interdisciplinary, like any branch of engineering students should pursue it, knowing well that North India is very, very prone to earthquake problems. So how this course should be taken in the IITs and how can we create more technocrats in this particular domain, sir?
See, this is the problem of Indian education system, Dr. Vijayan. This is a very fundamental question that you're raising.
Right.
We try to make specialists too early,
Right, sir.
right? So if you look at master's program in earthquake engineering, they would forget whether this person knows basic civil engineering or not, and they will start to teach him earthquake engineering. I believe the other way around it today. So how can I make somebody a good engineer for designing a multi-story building that will stand earthquakes?
Right.
Before I can teach earthquake, I need to teach a multi-story building. I need to teach him reinforced concrete. I have to teach him masonry. I have to teach him foundation.
Right, sir.
Right? So to my mind, this is where the challenge is. I don't believe that there should be a master's program in earthquake engineering per se. I believe that there should be a master's program in, let's say, geotechnical engineering, in structural engineering, in mechanical engineering, in whatever those areas are.
Right, sir.
And that program should be comprehensive, and it should include right mix of education towards earthquake part or vibrations part or whatever those parts are.
Right, sir.
So rather than create a very narrow subjects, I think we should prepare our people better. That is how I feel.
Right, sir. That's great. Professor Jain, I have come to end of this marathon interview session with you, sir. And I'm really thankful to you for giving your almost 2 hours of interaction. And I'm very, very satisfied with all the questionnaires, all the interaction points with you, sir. And again, I will say I'm honored to be here with you and interact with you. And this was very, very wonderful interaction with you, sir. Thanks a lot to you, sir, from my side and on behalf of all my subscribers here.
Dr. Vijayan, I enjoyed talking to you. I'm absolutely delighted to have had this opportunity to be able to speak with you. And you are very articulate, very comprehensive. And I would be actually very excited to have you come and visit IIT Gandhinagar whenever your situation permits. And I want you to experience what I've said here.
Yes,
I
sir.
want you to meet my students and without my presence there. I mean, not in my presence, but in my absence, I want you to meet my students.
Right,
And
sir.
I want you to come back to me and say whether what you heard from me,
It's true
whether
or
that
not.
is happening here
Yes,
or
sir.
that is not happening here. Chances
Yes, sir.
are that you will say that you found that it's 10 times or 100 times better than what you heard from me. That is what I'm hoping to hear.
So I realize, sir, what I have heard about you, you as a bold academician, whatever I have heard about you, that is true, sir. And the kind of option and opportunity you gave me, that you come and visit and see whatever I told, that is a rare opportunity for me. I would certainly like to visit, sir, and see that and make people also aware about this great experiment which you are doing, sir. Sir, I wish you
You'll
a
be
very
my-
good. Yes, sir.
You'll be my guest.
Yes.
Let me know.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot, sir, and
Thank
thank you once again.
Thank you.